Yeah, that's where their family's at, so it's been coming.
Yeah, no.
Last year was the first year.
And then I forgot the water. You forgot your water. Sure. Did you hear about the board member that resigned from the
Yeah, Mark sent that to me. I was like, yeah, see, that's what happens. You go there.
Woohoo.
Crap happens.
Super inappropriate.
Yeah, we weren't sure at the time when we were talking this morning what it was, but then we saw the article later, so we figured it was something pretty spicy.
And I'm telling you, I got dog crap like every week, and I'm like, how much? Why? I had an old dog that didn't leave that much mess.
Yeah. We used to have the big dog, don't you?
No, she died
That
right
must
after we got the puppy. She died.
That must have been like a week ago, huh? I could have sworn I saw your husband walking a good-sized dog the other day.
That's the puppy. Yeah,
Oh, that's a puppy?
well, maybe. Yeah, if you saw it, we
Yeah,
just
yeah.
yeah, Roxy died a month and a half ago or so. But Lola's not small by any means.
That must have been it. Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Same type of dog, kind
yep,
of?
Rottweiler.
Okay.
This one would have looked a lot more trim and in better shape than the other dog. It was really fat.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe it's just been a while. Time runs together.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's big. And she's only 5 months old.
Oh, wow.
I
No,
gotta
that
show
would
you
have
this.
been it, I think. 'Cause
I'll show you this picture. It's amazing to me how big she is. There's one of Julia holding her. I just couldn't believe how big.
Oh, yeah.
5 months.
Oh, wow. That was
So
a lot,
she's almost as big as our old dog.
Yeah.
She's crazy.
Just in time, Mr. Penny.
You ready to
It
be
is
electric chair?
7.
You ready to be electric chair?
That's kind of what I was. You know,
Somebody gotta do it, right?
I guess when I do something, I'll do it whole hog. I tell you what.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me? I don't think I have sound. Do I? Are you saying yes? I'm going to call the meeting to order. And welcome everyone. We're going to go around and have all the board members say their names. I'm going to start with Cindy.
Cindy Duffner.
Kevin Pena.
David Steinbrun.
Chris Mothershead.
Mike Ziegler.
Laura Crichton.
I'm going to just dive in. It seems so odd, you guys going back and forth between the at home and back in the office. So I apologize. Did everybody have a chance to look at the consent agenda? Is there any questions or concerns?
Oh.
You can't hear?
No.
They can't hear up. Oh no.
Stefan. It's cold involved. You got feed. Sorry. That's okay. Thank you. That's cool.
So, can you hear me now? Wow. All right. Did everybody get a chance to review the consent agenda? Does anybody have any questions or concerns that they'd like to address?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Are there any other questions or concerns or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. Do we have public comment? There's no public comment? Okay. Thank you. Any board communication that we need to address?
You may need to add anything to the reports. It is weird, really weird having an in-person meeting.
It is.
I like it better this way, but it's different.
I keep looking on my screen to see everybody's pictures.
Right now I'm trying to get a Zoom going. That's what I'm messing with my phone, just so people see for a new board member coming on. I'm trying to get him access.
So we'll move on to the reports. Does anybody have any questions or comments from any of the reports that you'd like to have addressed by administrators? Well, you guys need to talk so that we can kill a little time so that he can do this, because I know he's going to want to talk about the policies, which is the next thing on the agenda.
Trying to claim host.
Are you ready? Maybe.
Give me 1 second.
Our next thing is to discuss the policy 1905, one of our emergency policies that we enacted earlier in the pandemic.
Yes. Sorry, I'll try to multitask and not do a very good job of it because I'm not real great at that, but give me 1 second. All right, so now I'm having feedback. All right, he should be able to get on. He's not there yet. Policy 1905, we had discussed this previously, and the last time we updated it was, I don't know, a couple months ago, I believe, a couple board meetings ago. And one of the reasons why we couldn't go optional like the board had kind of wanted is because we had a contract in place with the GEA. The GEA has come forward and worked with us to give a proposal to the board to possibly change the policy for the remainder, a little less than 3 weeks now of school. And so those policy changes are there. It was on the board packet that you could see in the language changes. And so we got rid of some of the language and just added a couple paragraphs, which basically just had it be optional for the remainder of the year, and except in special circumstances. And those circumstances is basically, let me just pull it up. It might be easier just to quickly read it, just to make sure everyone is clear on this. Give me a second for some reason. So the policy changes has to deal with face coverings. I'm gonna blow this up a little bit. But basically, I mean, the big change with the optional is just understanding that the board would authorize teachers and/or staff to make the determination of face coverings will be required in their individual classroom settings. That is so if a teacher wants to require them in the classroom because of health concerns or whatever, then they would be able to do that. The district would still provide face coverings for individuals who are in one of those classrooms or settings. So it could also be on a bus, it could be elsewhere. So there's just different settings that could happen. And so this would just allow for those staff members who might have some health concerns to be able to mandate them still, and then students would be required to wear them in those settings. But everything else outside of that, in the hallways, outside, it would be optional at that point. And so that's really the biggest changes. And then the harassment was changed a little bit just because of the situation, but this was sent to legal, and they approved this for the board to approve if they so choose to do that. Any questions on that? Oh, one last thing I want to say is because this is an emergency policy, in the into the 1900 series, they can pass with one reading. That was something that the board did at the very beginning of this pandemic, was change the policies so during this emergency time, these could be done in one meeting as long as they were, everyone was notified well in advance, which we legally notice you all as board members, but then also the public, which we didn't necessarily have to, but they also were notified as well. So, so normally you have a first reading, then a second reading, but in this case, it only needs to be a first reading. So it would take effect immediately. So tomorrow it would start if you guys so choose to do this.
Stephen, I do have a couple of questions about it. Firstly, how will a parent be made aware if their child is required to wear a mask in their classroom, or will we have some kind of notice about those circumstances?
Yeah, so we would, I guess, if this goes into effect tomorrow, I guess the first thing that would be notified by, I guess, would be tomorrow after school, just because it's so quick. If this was like on a weekend, we'd be able to get some time. But yes, I mean, we could get messages out to parents or.
And if a kid, as usual, doesn't have theirs with them, they will be provided so that
We will make sure that they
no
have
one's
one
in
of those
trouble
classes,
for not
yeah.
having it. And then my only other question, because I definitely think it's time to do this, is how long does this newly written policy stay in place? So is this just ideally through the end of the school year? Is it going to be re-examined in the fall? Is there any chance at all that there may be classrooms where kids are wearing masks next year? Or are we willing to say that that's not what we're doing now?
So at this point, the policy in the 1900 series, all these policies are in place until it's repealed by the board.
Okay.
So the board can at any time repeal all of them. There's a process that we'll have to go through, so the board would have to, go through that process in order to do that, and then there would be no more, and then it would be anything else. If the board doesn't put it in policy, then it would be something that always is negotiations with the union.
That's what I was going to ask. Is our negotiation with the GEA that is through the end of the school year that they're asking us, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
this
just a couple
is
weeks,
for
right?
yep. So this is for the MOA that was in
MOA.
place. Yeah, there's MOAs, there's MOUs, but the MOA that was in place for this year because of COVID, that ends this year. So in order for anything, so this policy will, if you guys, push this through, then this will be in place until this policy is no longer or this policy gets changed. The MOA is in place until the end of the school year. And so if the teachers union wanted to negotiate something, they would have to do that, and the board would have to negotiate that for next year. But nothing with next year is in place with like a MOA or anything like that, except just the normal CBA that's already there with the union.
Thank you.
So.
Steph, I caught the gist of that, but what did you say when she asked, basically, and you answered, how long does these policies stay into
So this policy stays until the board decides to
all
have
of the
it.
1900 series?
Yeah, you guys will be able to take out parts of it. You can get rid of the whole 1900. That'll be up to the board as to what that looks like for. And that's, do we have a policy committee look at that first, and then to the board? That'll be up to the board moving forward.
Okay.
I just have a quick one. This 1900 series, is it contingent on, say, the state of emergency? Say the governor lifts state of emergency, does that wipe out 1900? Or do we still have to physically go and redo this?
As far as I know, we have to physically still go
Okay.
through the process of getting rid of it if the governor does do that. But I could be wrong on that. I can ask legal to see if
Okay.
that
It
would
might
be
just
the
be
case.
a formality too, that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't believe it's very difficult, if I remember right, reading them, that the process is not very much. It'd be similar to this, I think, as it would come up to the board. The board would decide, and I think it could be done away with in one board meeting,
Okay.
from what I understand, but I would need to look back at that.
I think it's put together well for what we're trying to do, so Do I just make a motion to
That would
adopt?
be wonderful.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adopt policy 1905, it looks like from here.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the changes to the policy 1905. Is there any other questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Now,
Right? Oh, that's on
So
video.
just so everyone knows, there will be an email going out tonight after this board meeting, as long as I remember from here to my office, that will go out to parents, letting them know this change, and it'll also go to our staff so that everyone knows. We kind of figured this is where this was going to go, so I have it kind of queued up. I just have to. I'm hoping it's not too late of a meeting tonight, so it doesn't come to people's emails. But I think it's pretty important for them to know before tomorrow that of this change. So, but just so everyone's clear, who's here, it is optional except in those certain circumstances. So there will be some people still wearing face coverings, but I think your guys' other option was face coverings for everyone through the rest of the year. So,
yay.
yeah.
Okay, next on our agenda is the policy 1903. You're changing who has to approve any facility requests, is that what?
Yeah, so part of the 1900 series was to have the board take control over the facility request, and also so internal meetings and also external meetings. And I don't know, it was closer to January, I believe, the board gave the administrators back the control over internal meetings, so anything school-related was there, but facility requests, anybody who wants to use our facilities outside the school district had to still come to the board for facilities requests. What we're doing is we would like to take out that part of this policy. Let me pull it up and bring it over because it might be easier to just show. So some of the, we didn't change the policy when you guys gave us permission for the internal school events. So all I did was go through, since we're amending this policy right now anyways, was to change it from Board of Trustees to GPS administration for the internal school district events, which is what we've already been doing. And then down in the section of facility use agreements, if we just strike that out, that will revert back to what it always has been, and the administration has just followed policy on how we do facility requests. I mean, the real reason why this was there is because of all of the regulations and stuff from the health department, and if we were going to allow people to use our facilities or not. And we've, for the most part, been we're working pretty closely with the health department to make sure that we're doing things safely, and we've got a pretty good handle on it. So we would like to be able to take back this so that we can move a lot quicker than what we have with facility requests.
Any questions?
Just a question on that last paragraph for enforcement, where it says Board of Trustees, should it be administration? The second line.
So visitors to any school building or any attendee at a meeting, gathering, or authorized by the... Oh. Yeah, I mean, we can, I guess, by leaving it, we can still leave it that way too, because you are still authorizing us. So ultimately, you guys are the ones that's authorizing it, so we could put it as GPS administration, but I think you could probably leave it as that because you're still authorizing us to do it, so it's still, I think it would still fit, but we can change it if you want to.
If it works, it works.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I move then we accept 1903 as amended.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the amendments to 1903. Are there any other questions or concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Oh, that's so much quicker than having to read everybody's name. We have facility requests.
Yeah, and so we can either have you guys approve these, or since the policy's in place, we can skip that one and
It
administration
sounds like
will
it's
just...
our authority. It's all you now.
All right.
Yeah.
And we weren't sure what was going to happen, so we had to put them on there just in case.
Just in case.
But yeah, anybody watching for those facility requests, those are going to be approved. So,
Okay. Next, because the class of 2020 got gypped out of all their fun senior stuff last year, they've asked us to do something special with their funds that they had saved for.
yes, it's been a process with them, unfortunately. And you kind of mentioned that it was a rough time for the class of 2020 because of the pandemic, and they lost out on a lot of different items. Let me try to blow this up. Sorry, there's a little lag, so it's hard to do it this way. So I'm hoping this, so that people can see it in the... All right. So policy 7425 deals with this a little bit. We have worked with legal on this. We have tried to go through every single avenue. You know, Mr. Johnson's worked with them to try to go through every single avenue that we possibly could to not have to do this. We do not want to set precedents of allowing classes to have money after their senior year and the district holds on to it. It's not a practice that legal advises. It's not a practice that we want to be doing. But in this case, we have tried to figure out how we could help them out. But just in the situation, we've just kind of come to the conclusion that there's really not a good thing to do except for them to spend it on stuff that they really didn't want to do. And so we worked with legal to come up with this, and you can see it's about $3,600. It's basically a motion that would allow for the district to hold on to those funds for a period of 10 years. And there's a set procedure with that as to the district would, you know, obviously just like any other fund that we would have, would need to go through and make sure that all expenditures are still approved by the district. So they wouldn't just be able to just spend it on whatever they wanted. They would have to, it'd be district approved items and so forth, but it would allow them to use it the way they seem fit. The class officers would be the one that we'd be working with, so, which is what we've been doing anyways. Anything else, Mr. Johnson, that I've forgotten?
No, I just do compliment the class of 2020 because they have to do some of this back to school. You know, kudos to whoever was that on that. You know, where we're at.
And just for those of you who couldn't hear Mr. Johnson, he just complimented the class of 2020 officers just with all their time on this, working forward. So, any questions?
Only because of what you just said. So the class of 2020 student council officers will decide what to, but it still has to be district approved. So it's like for their class reunion, they have to spend it on, I don't really get it. You telling me they can't go buy a bunch of booze in 10 years and have a party?
No.
So what did, I misunderstood this. I thought it was going to be like in 10 years, they could use it for their reunion how they saw fit, but they have to come and itemize it to the board in 10 years? And what kind of things are?
To the principal, the building principal.
principal,
Just like
okay.
just like we do for any activity items that we have already.
Okay.
So it's the same process as that. They would work with the current high school principal at the time to do that. And there's lots of other things that they could spend it on reunions.
Yeah, I'm just kidding about that. But in my head, it would seem like the district wouldn't have, in theory, have had any precedent to approve any funds to be spent on reunion type stuff. So
Correct.
I just want to make sure that in 10 years there's not any bitterness. 10 years is a long time.
Which is why we did not want to do this.
Okay.
And why they were hesitant as well as to, I mean, we don't know who's going to be sitting in these seats.
Right.
And so one of the items on there is that the high school principal will be sending them a notice of this that they'll be able to hold on to on district letterhead and so forth to make sure that that is, I mean, there's going to be some checks and balances there, and that's why we don't want to make a habit of this. So it's a one-time thing just because of the pandemic. We tried everything we could to not have to do this. But at the end of the day, we didn't also feel comfortable having them spend it on stuff that they really didn't want to spend it on, or just giving it back
Right.
out of the greatness of their hearts,
Okay. Don't quote me as saying they were going to get drunk, because they're not. They're good kids.
What's that?
What'd you say?
I said, don't quote me on saying they were going to get drunk. They're good kids. It was just a joke. So it's going in the paper.
Is there any other questions or concerns? This is where somebody says, I would like to make a motion.
I'll make the motion and add to it that it's understood that it's just for special circumstance due to COVID in 2020.
Thank you.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded to allow the class of 2020 to have their senior funds saved within the district, basically.
Yeah. And you can just say what's on there, and then
Well, that's a lot to
that's what
say.
I know, but you can just say what's listed for your motion and not have to read the whole thing.
It's been moved and seconded to follow the recommended motion on there.
Perfect.
Is there any other questions or concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All opposed? Motion carries. Terry has asked us to renew the football co-op for 3 years. Is that
Yep,
correct?
so every co-op is for 3 years, unless someone requests out of it and both parties agree. I believe that's what it is. And so it's time to renew. We've been talking about this for how many months now? I think quite a bit. They've already approved it, and so now it's just our turn if we want to continue with it. And our recommendation is to continue.
Does anybody have any questions or concerns they'd like to talk about?
Oh, of course I do.
I
So,
count on it.
I like my second board meeting ever. We had a pretty lengthy conversation about you guys hear me, about our football needing to be in Class B because of our numbers. And even with Terry, our numbers were that low. But because we had a co-op with Terry, we did not qualify for that change. And I know emotions were really running high at that time, but I know it was stated in that meeting, well, then we don't want to renew our co-op. And it may have just been a momentary thing. So I was kind of trying to see if Mr. Buckley or Mr. Murphy were here, but is that a concern that we want to dredge up from the depths, or is everybody good with where we're at? You know how I feel about it, which I don't want to see anybody in Terry be denied the ability to play, but I also don't want to set something up for the next 3 years as a board member who's about to leave.
Yeah, and so what, back to that meeting, it was, once you have a co-op, you have to include their numbers as well. And then we ended up not being able to go it was just football was all we were looking at. And so the number for the school to go Class B is 307. And right now, I think we're really close to that number, if not at 307, I believe, right now. We're pretty low on numbers, but when you look at our enrollment and what is happening, this should be the lowest we're hoping to be. We are not expecting that we're going to have more people leave because of COVID. We're opening things back up, and I think a lot of people left because some of the practices that we were having for safety, and so we are hoping that it's going to be the opposite. We're going to gain back people, and so even if we don't, even just looking at our numbers, we're still going to be well over that next year. I mean, we might be up to 350 or higher. So, and when you look at years coming down, it just doesn't look like we're going to be down to those numbers. But I do appreciate you bringing up that concern, because we did look at that just to see, because we did not want to make a decision that was going to rule out another decision later for our kids as a possibility. But it doesn't look like we're going to be in that situation. There is a situation with Terry that they might have a football team in the next couple, maybe not next year, but next couple years. So they might be eventually coming to us, asking us to withdraw the co-op. But that's not until, I mean, they have their numbers that they have to work with too. But that is a possibility. But for us, once you guys make this decision, we will be in for the next 3 years, unless Terry asks to get out of it.
I have one other question that has nothing to do with the football side. I noticed in that it said that we were looking at a softball with Terry. Is that, for some reason I had heard that we were looking at it with Weibo. Is that not accurate?
So Weibo, I believe, do we already have one with Weibo? Yes. I think we already have
Softball?
one with Weibo with softball.
Okay.
And then for Terry, they are looking at it, and that's going to come next month. Right now, we're trying to work with Terry on the agreement between, so I mean, there's the agreement, the application that goes to the state, and then there's the agreement between the two schools, and we're still working on that. Once we just couldn't get that done for this meeting, and so once that's done, that'll come next meeting to the board to vote on that one way or the other.
Okay. I just want to make sure I have the town right.
And I think I actually saw that I had Weibo in here for the motion, so you might have got it from that. I literally just changed it.
Oh.
I noticed it, and I'm like, oh, wow.
I don't know
It
where
says
I got
Weibo
it.
in there.
You know
So
I'm
it
reading
was
everything.
probably, yep, absolutely. It's very subconscious.
I personally think the co-ops are awesome for both communities involved, and I'm excited to continue with Terry, so I make a motion to accept the co-op or go forward with the co-op. I don't know.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the co-op with Terry for the next 3 years for football. Is there any other questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All oppose? Motion carries. Next, we have to canvass the election results.
So they're unofficial until you guys
Look at them.
look at them, which they were in the packet, and verify them, I guess. I mean, I don't know how else to say it than that. And you guys would just make a motion to accept the results of the election, which was the general, both levies passed, and then for the board members.
I'll make a motion to accept the results of the election.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the election results. Is there any questions or concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, oops. School psychiatrist contract with the Prairie View
Consortium. Yeah, so we have struggled for a very long time to get a school psychologist. IDEA requires us for every IEP to have a school psychologist do certain testing. It is something that we are required to do. And in Eastern Montana, it is extremely difficult to get school psychologists. And so we have been scraping by trying to contract with individual school psychologists that have been run ragged in Eastern Montana. Everyone is trying to do that. We've been working with schools to try to, and other agencies to try to get more people into school psychologist schools so that we can hopefully have more. We've tried to pair with Prairie View to try to offer a full-time school psych, and for the last 2 years, I believe, have not had any takers. Prairie View was successful. They went to their board and was able to offer a full-time position. They were able to hire someone, and so we are trying to contract with them for certain days of that. And so it actually works out really, really well for both of us. They have a full-time school psychologist, and then we would contract for, I believe it was 49 days. Is that right, Val? Minimum 49 days. It's really about 6 days a month, which is a lot more than what we have. Ultimately, just so everyone knows, we really need a full-time school psych, and that's where we would want to go. This allows us to plug some holes, but it doesn't really fix any problems moving forward. And so eventually we need to look at having a full-time school psych on staff, which a lot of schools have and need, and by federal law we really need to be offering more than what we are. But this allows us to try to do the minimum of what we have to do, and so this gives us the best option of doing that. We're pretty excited about it because it's a lot more than what we've been able to do the last couple years, and so this allows for that contract, and you guys just have to approve it in order for us to be able to do that. So it's a set fee. We don't have to pay benefits, thing like that in this, so it's actually a pretty good way to budget. So
explain to me why we have that one, and yet we have the Prairie View Curriculum Consortium contract.
Yep.
What's the difference between the two?
Yep, so this one's about for a school psychologist, which deals with IDEA. Down below on the Curriculum Consortium contract, we are also required by accreditation purposes to have a curriculum director, and we always hover around what accreditation says. You have to have a full-time curriculum director if you have 100 FTE certified staff. We're always right around there. Sometimes we pop above, sometimes we're below. Since I've been superintendent, we've been right below 100, and so we haven't had a full-time curriculum director, even though district our size, we should have one. But because we're under, we still have to have a curriculum director named. It just doesn't have to be full-time. And so we're able to contract with them for their curriculum services, and that allows us to meet our accreditation rules, and it's for a pretty low cost for us. And so one's dealing with curriculum, one's dealing with our school psychologist, psychology staff for our kids with IEPs and so forth.
Just want to be clear. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about the school psychologist?
I move to accept the proposal between Glendive Public Schools and Prairie View Special Services for the use of their psychologist.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to extend the contract to the school psychologist through the Prairie View Consortium. Is there any other questions or concerns?
How is this, I see that it's going to end May 27, 2022. What is the process to redo it or review it, or is this just going to be something we rubber stamp every year?
Until we find a permanent solution for that. I mean, we can try to hire a half-time is what we've been looking for, but ultimately it really should be a full-time. And so if we decide to do a full-time, we can have that. But even the full-time, it's hard to get school psychs right now. And so that will be difficult. But yeah, we'll have to, if we decide to continue contracting with them, it'll have to be a year-to-year contract. We do this already with OT, occupational therapists, physical therapy. We have contracts with them. Who else? We contract with most, what's that? Medicaid. There's a lot of services for the federal government that we have to contract with different outside entities. And so this kind of fits that. I mean, it'd be nice to have our own school psychologist just because of so many tests that we have to do every single year, and our special ed population keeps rising, which means more need for school psychology services.
So who oversees their position and if they're doing what we need them to do?
Yep, so that'll be Val Dameron, our special services director, and then myself as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And ultimately, the principals will be the ones in, I mean, Val will be in a lot of those meetings as well, but our principals will be in every meeting. So every meeting with the school psychologists, we will have teachers working with them, principals working with them, our special services director working with them as well. So they'll have a lot of eyes on.
Is there any other questions or concerns? We have motions on the table. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Montana Job Corps MOU?
Yeah, so every year we need to come forward with this Job Corps MOU. We do it at different times depending on when we get it from them, but it basically allows for us to, if a student goes to the Job Corps, they go through that program and they graduate, we are able to get A and B from those students and count for graduation for us. So it's a really good thing to have in place. It gives another option. It's almost like having an alternative school here. If they go over there, it still helps us. Does anybody have any other thoughts on that? Okay.
I guess I would just question how many kids a year do we have participate in that?
Not a whole lot. How many kids do we have participate in that? I would say maybe one or two, maybe an average.
None this year,
Okay.
Okay.
none last year.
Okay.
But so basically, it's just so we don't miss out on the A and B if we do.
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
And we give them a diploma from here if they so choose,
And they
correct?
get diploma. Yeah.
Or they earn one, not we give them one. That's the
Right.
wording.
Any other questions? Concerns? Comments?
Make a motion to pass.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Montana Job Corps MOU. Are there any other questions or concerns? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The 21-22 school year calendar proposal for a 4-day school week.
We have the curriculum consortium
Oh, I
first. Sorry.
skipped that one. Sorry. I felt we already
Yeah, we
covered
already
it.
talked about it a little bit.
Does anybody have any questions or concerns about the consortium
Now,
curriculum?
This just allows us to meet accreditation. It's a very inexpensive way to have that. I just want to say, just like I did earlier, that we really need to have our own curriculum director, but at this time, the only reason why we're not coming with that recommendation is just, to hire another position is not a position that we're in right now as a district. So this allows us to have those services and meet accreditation with going through that. And, Kim Stanton, she's the one that does it, and she does a phenomenal job at what she does there. So she's very helpful in those aspects.
Questions? Comments?
I'll make a motion to go forward with the Prairie View Curriculum Consortium contract. That's a lot of words.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the contract with Prairie View Curriculum Consortium. Are there any other questions or concerns or discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Now let's do the school year
All right.
calendar proposal.
All right, so last meeting, we discussed the possibility of a proposal coming to the board of a proposed 4-day school week, and that 4 days is really a student 4-day school week. So that's the first thing, but you can see that there's 145 student days with 5 early outs, and you can see the teacher days. Typically, teacher days are anywhere between, I'm trying to think of, some have been less than 185, some have been right around there, but typically it's right around 185 days for teachers. And so the teachers' contracts basically stay the same. There's not a whole lot of difference in the amount of days. They're still the 7 PIR days. And those PIR days, a lot of people get confused with PIR day, what that actually means, but really there's 7 PIR days. There's 2 before school starts. Then there is 2 for parent-teacher conferences. Then there's 2 for MFPE days. They used to be called MEA days, and so that's what comes in my head, but which is a law or administrative action by the state. That's not something we can change. So there's 6 days that we really don't have a whole lot of control over, which leaves 1 day that we get to have as a district PIR day. In the past, it's been either, splitting it up into 3 different early outs. So there was 2 hours on this day, 2 hours on this day, 2 hours on this day to get the 6 hours. More recently, we've been taking those 6 hours and putting it into a whole day. So that usually happens in January or February for that PIR day. But those, we have to have a minimum, or we have to have those 7 PIR days. And so that's built in every single year. How it's been done in the past is, we have a committee made up of teachers and administrators that come up with the schedule. This year was a little bit different because we were looking at going away from a 5-day schedule, so there was a little bit more meetings. We didn't get it all done by last meeting, but we have come to an agreement as to what that looks like. By law, the board has to negotiate with the teachers union in order for a school calendar to be adopted. So at this point, this has been approved by tentatively by the GEA. I don't know if it needs to be still formally. I didn't ask that question. They might still have to formally approve it, but it has been looked at by them, ready to be proposed. And you can see that it is very similar to the 4-day school week that we did this year, but there's some definite changes. We have taken out the end of the day working with off-site students that was here this year for this COVID year, I'll call it, to try to manage all the different things that we had to do. And so that goes back to our students on site. And so you can see that WMS and DCHS have an end time at 3:45, which is right now they get out at what time? 2:30? 2:46. So it's about an hour more a day for students than this year. If you look back at the 5-day, it's about, I can't remember, 25 minutes more than it was the year before. And so you multiply that by 4, and that's how many more minutes they're getting per week on those 4 days. Ultimately, we have to meet accreditation purposes of this, because if we don't get our A and B, which is the money that we get per student. And so that has all been built into this calendar in different ways. There are other pieces with proficiency that comes into play that is built into this as well. And so you can see when students get out in each school, a lot of people are like, why is Jefferson getting out 3:10 where, the middle school and high school is 3:45? And for busing purposes, it takes a while because our schools are a ways. They're the first ones to get picked up, and then they go to Lincoln and then Washington and the high school. And so that's why it's set up that way. It's to make sure that we are have the spacing with our times so that buses can get them. And so And then also the reason why Jefferson is first is because they do not have to get as many hours. They only have to have 720 hours versus 1,080. And so Lincoln always becomes the hardest piece in any calendar to get hours. Third graders only have to get 720 hours, but fourth grade to 12th grade has to get the 1,080. And because of busing and where it's located and so forth, it's always a struggle to try to get Lincoln its hours. And so our schedules are always built around Lincoln and trying to make sure that they get enough time. And so you can see, on their times, I know you guys have had this, but Fridays basically become a day for our non-proficient students where they will be, if they are deemed non-proficient, then they will be required to come on Fridays. This will allow more help one-on-one with them or in small groups, I guess, to try to help get their grades up and be proficient, which is what we are after. So that will be there. So Fridays will be a mandatory time for our non-proficient students, and hopefully that will be incentive enough for them to be proficient and then not have to come on Fridays. And so that's there. We do are looking at meals, so having breakfast and lunch for those students. I know that was a concern this year with Fridays. We did offer that to our community. If they wanted meals on Fridays, they could actually pick those up on Thursday and get those meals, but next year we'll actually have breakfast and a grab and go on Fridays, so that it'll go from 8 to 11 on Fridays. So busing, we haven't quite figured that out yet. There's a lot of pieces to this that there's just a lot of work left to do, but just like anything, we'll have time to be able to get that taken care of and make sure that we are doing the best that we can to try to serve our students that are coming on Fridays. You can see the teacher's schedule there on Fridays and what they would be doing, and this is just part of that negotiation when we're dealing with the contract with the teachers. And so that is what we have agreed upon for Fridays. In a normal, in some 4-day schedules, in some school districts, teachers have not had to come on Fridays, all Fridays, I guess. And if you look at the school calendar, there's very few months where they're going to have to be there every Friday. They usually have, it's probably like 3 Fridays a month on average is what it looks like looking at the calendar. We tried to make any time that we could, we tried to make sure it didn't take away student time. So I think there's only 4 days that Monday through Thursday the whole year that we won't have school on 4 days the whole year, which is down from 11. So we really tried hard. Some of those days, there's just not anything that we can do about those. It wasn't something that we had control over. It was either a PIR day for MFPE days, or it was a holiday like Thanksgiving. We're not going to have kids come on Thanksgiving, and so those 4 days include those. Anything else, we did not schedule any kind of getting out on those days. We try to protect those 4 days to make sure we could get enough time. And so we have met all the requirements that the state has to make sure we get A and B. Our concern is to make sure that we are continuing to work on the achievement gap and making sure that we are getting students caught up, not only proficient, but then also working on ways to get people caught up. We are looking at summer school this summer in all of our schools. We're still working on those plans, but we're hoping to have information out to our community on that to kind of help with that as well. Trying to think of anything else that I did not go over. There are certain pieces to this that we are still working on, but for the most part, these are the main pieces that the board and the union need to agree upon moving forward, along with this proposed calendar that's linked. Those days set, normally we already have this set long before the May board meeting, but because of everything going on, this was where we're at this year. And if you think of last year, we actually had a calendar like 2 weeks before school started. So I never want to be in that situation again. And I hope that never happens, because that is never a good way for our community to have to wait for what this looks like. So we're hopeful that we can answer questions and get this approved so that people can start planning next year.
Since we are a governing board and not an operational board, am I understanding correctly that really what the board is saying is either yes, we are cool with these in and out times and the 4-day school week, not so much about what's happening during the day, because that's what we have our administrators for, right? Okay.
But the two main things that the board really has to decide is the calendar, the proposed calendar draft. So the days, what those days look like, generally speaking, and then when this piece on the teachers, because that does deal with their contract time and so forth. So those are the two main pieces that the board really needs to decide on, which kind of comes in one chunk when you're looking at this. Everything else becomes kind of that administrative, us trying to figure out how to make it work and so forth. So we try to get everything that we possibly can to give you a good picture of what this would look like. But there's still some pieces that we're still working out.
Well, I assume there's a lot of details that not only aren't worked out today, but that won't be worked out till Christmas. So, as you feel things out with this new thing, one thing I will say, I guess, just as a general statement, is that I've watched a lot of school districts go to a 4-day school week and had their auditoriums full of people for and against. I haven't heard a peep out of anyone about this. There's no public comment tonight. Do you think, and do you guys think, that the staff and parents are aware enough that this is what we're talking about tonight? Okay. I've wanted a 4-day school week in Glendive since I was in kindergarten.
So what we haven't had anybody really question it. I mean, we've tried to put our feelers out there and so forth. I did put a video out there last week. We sent out an email to make sure that there was, so all parents got the email, or should have got the email, hopefully, in our system. And we've been sending emails out, so if they haven't contacted us and haven't been getting information from us all year, then, and this has been the year of communication, so I'm hoping that would have already got taken care of. But we did send one out to every single parent. I think more people get mad at the district because they get sometimes multiple emails, a text, app notification, website ding, and they're like, seriously, people, yeah. And so, but I did have a video. I was notified this morning, thank you, Mr. Ziegler, that the video was not working for some reason. It was showing an error. So I did resend out the email with I notified everyone through the app and the website. I guess I didn't do it by email, to just say that there was a video. But in that email, we summed up this stuff, and we said, hey, watch the video. So everyone knew that there was going to be context behind proposing a 4-day school week. We also had stuff last month as well, and we put information out at that point too. So but we've been talking to people. I know there's been discussions on Facebook. We have not really seen a whole lot of negatives to this, but I could be wrong. But like I said, I mean, with no one coming.
I was just surprised that, so I suspect we'll hear all about it tomorrow when it's done, but I think, as you guys are going through this and you work out what that day looks like, I'd be curious, even though I won't be on the board in an hour, I'd be curious to hear what that day is going to look like. I don't know if you can send out an email once the admins have made those decisions, but I'm really excited for it. It seems like it's been a positive thing in the districts where I have family, who've gone through the 4-day week. There was a lot of concerns at the beginning that turned out to be not as big of a deal as people had initially suspected, and the community just seemed to get used to it, and we already are, after this year. So I make a motion that adopt the school calendar.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the proposed school calendar for the 21-22 school year. Is there any other questions or concerns or discussion?
I do have a question. What is or are there any teeth behind enforcing the non-proficient side of things on Friday?
Yeah, so because of the hours and so forth, we will be taking attendance, and it'll just be like any other day. So if they miss on Fridays when they are scheduled to be there, the teeth is the exact same as we have for attendance of any other day.
So
So we
they'll
will
know they
count
need to be
towards
there?
there. Yeah, so then, because of the A and B and making sure that we get those for non-proficient students, that's where the teeth will come in, is we will be taking attendance and making sure that, I mean, like anything, students don't have to come any day,
Right.
but we encourage them to do that, and then if they do reach a certain threshold, then there's things that start happening that have a little bit more teeth, like you say, so.
I just have one question too. There's nothing in there on remote learning. Is that a different discussion to be held later? I know that was out there, that was a possibility.
Yeah, so we know that on-site learning is better for students. I think this last year has shown that. I think some students, there are cases that some students do really well with that, and so I don't want to dismiss that. But for the majority of students, they do a better job working with our great teachers that we have on a day-to-day basis and the other staff we have. So on-site is the best, and so we are focusing on this as on-site. But we do also do not want to miss where the world is going, and possibly offering on-site services to families who it does work well for their student. This year we've had some success stories with online, and we've had a lot of students who we've asked to come back on site because they were not getting the job done online. And so we want to have that in place again next year for those parents that want to be able to do that so that they can still be part of Glendive Public Schools. We're still working on what that looks like for an online program. It will look totally different than it does this year with our staff. We want our staff to focus on on-site learning.
Yep.
And so we do want to capture if there is a percentage of people in our community that want to do something remotely and still want to be a part of our school district. We don't want to lose that opportunity for them to be a part of it. There is a balance as to, if we only have one student in the whole district that wants to do on-site learning, or online learning, what does that look like? But we have different options as to, like Edgenuity is one program that we've been looking at that can offer an online class with their own teachers and then allow us to oversee it and allow for us to give credit in doing that instead of using our own staff members. So there's different options we're looking at just depending on what that is. But for 99% of our students, it's this calendar is what we want to focus on. We don't want to go back. We definitely do not want to do a hybrid type of learning before. But I do want to, but that does bring up the difference between off-site learning and homework. I did put it on the sheet. That doesn't mean there's not going to be stuff that teachers are going to require work to be done at home. Just like in years past, that's a very important part of learning is repetitions and doing practice. The only difference is it's not going to be part of their us trying to get A and B, if that makes sense. It'll be part of their learning in that class.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, no, I just knew it was a thing before, and
Yeah,
it's a possibility, and just that it's something separate that'll be discussed later.
Absolutely. No, I
Okay.
appreciate you bringing it up because I know there's a lot of people concerned about that piece.
Yep.
For sure.
Any other questions? Comments? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. No significant upcoming events except for fun stuff.
And one thing I didn't put on there was the meeting that's right after this one. I didn't think about putting that on there. It should be right there, so people can stick around for the next exciting meeting. But
We don't have any Volkert and Wagasser?
we do not have any Volkert Wagasser. The only last thing I want to say before we adjourn is I want to thank all the board members who have been serving this year that's going to be leaving us tonight here in a little bit. I know I can speak on behalf of everyone that we really appreciate what you guys have done, and I know that this past year was not anything that any of you signed up for. When you wanted to come serve our school district, is probably one of the hardest years that anybody has ever had to be in a public service situation, when you're having to make decisions that are not always popular. And I just appreciate all you guys and what you guys have done. And really appreciate your guys' time that you've spent, especially this last year, because if you remember how many board meetings we have had over the last year, I've, talking with all the new incoming board members, I said, I don't think it's going to be like that. I really hope it's not going to be like that. But it was pretty crazy for a long time. And so I just really appreciate your time and effort that you've put in to making this a successful year and getting us to this point. So thank you. So now I'll turn it back over to you to your last.
I get to adjourn my last meeting. And I told them I probably would try really hard not to do the happy dance out the door, because it's been a long year. So, and thanks everyone for coming out. We really do appreciate the feedback, even though everyone was quiet and there wasn't any public comment. So, and be sure and let your board members know that you have concerns. We can't tell if people don't tell you.
So when she adjourns, we're just going to ask the board members, we're just going to take a quick break, 5-minute break, just to kind of revamp and reorganize this. And we're going to ask, the board members who are leaving, we wish you good luck, and you're more welcome to stay or leave. And then our new board members, if you want to come and take one of the open seats, we will get ready for the realignment meeting here in a little bit. And we'll have to wait for our county superintendent. I don't know if she's here or not. I don't see her right now, but she's going to help swear us in. So, all right.
Yep, thank you. Meeting's adjourned.
So I'm excited for that part to take place.
Here, got it right here. In order for it to be, it's got to be a notary.
This is or public official. So in our
Cole, we can do within 15 days. Is he
He's
going
going to be
to?
part of this meeting, though, so he's going to want to. Hey, Cole, are you there? You're going to have to unmute, I think.
Ask him to stop by tomorrow and sign it too, please.
You there, Cole? Okay, let me just turn up the volume. Can you see? No, you can't see. Where's... Sorry, I thought I had the video on for you. For some reason, my video camera's not working. Let me... Can you see Ann now?
Sure can.
Okay.
Ready, guys? Are we okay, Stefan?
Yep.
Okay. Would you raise your right hand, please? We're going to repeat the oath of office as it's listed there. And we can do it all together, if that's okay. I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Montana, and I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity, so help me God. Thank you, gentlemen. Welcome to the board. I'd appreciate it if you'd sign on the form, and I'll give them back, and I will finish them off. Cole, if you could stop by the office maybe tomorrow or later this week and sign yours, I'd appreciate it.
Sounds good.
Thanks. No, but I can do it because it's a test. The public official. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So you ready for this? So you ready for this?
I don't know.
Just your signature. That's a signature.
Cole, if you want to say something, just say Stefan and raise your hand, get my attention somehow, and then I'll hold you up to the mic so everyone can hear you. Okay? Yep, I think we're ready.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to start by introducing everyone. David, if you'd like to start.
David Steinbrun.
Joel Basta.
Jay Phelan.
Frank Cian.
Bo Gibbs.
Mike Ziegler?
And we have on Zoom, you want to introduce yourself, Cole? Cole Smith.
Thank you, gentlemen. Stefan, go ahead.
And Stefan Schreibeis,
And Ann
superintendent.
Sadler. The next, you've already taken the oath of office. So we're going to call for election for board chair. Any nominations?
I'll nominate Mike.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Is that Frank? Who
Yeah.
nominated?
That was me.
Okay.
Thank you, Frank.
That's what I thought. Sorry, we were looking down.
Any more nominations for board chair? Any other nominations for board chair? In absence of any other nominations, I declare Mike Ziegler the board chair by acclamation. Come on over.
I you get to run the meeting.
Now the meeting's yours. Greg.
If you need help, we'll help.
Yeah. Next on the agenda will be the election of the board vice chairperson. Any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate David Steinbrod.
I read the rules and I can second that. So, any other nominations? Okay, I guess we can have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Motion passes. Next on the agenda is to appoint the clerk. Do we need a motion for that?
Yeah, you'll want to nominate, you'll do the same process.
Okay.
Of who you want to appoint to be clerk and then have a vote.
Okay. Any nominations for clerk?
I'd say we nominate Ann.
Seconds?
I'll second it.
Vote to pass. Everybody, anybody? The ayes?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any nays? Motion passes.
So Ann, do you want to explain this next one for them?
Yeah. You're authorizing me to allow the county to invest our funds. The county holds all of our funds, and we're fully invested at all times. So this just basically says, pool our money with the counties and invest it the best for the taxpayers.
So for those of you who didn't hear, I'll try to sum it up real quickly. It just authorizes her to invest our funds with the county to better help our district as best as we can with pooling our money with the county. So does that kind of sum it up, Ann? Okay.
Okay. I'll make a nomination to approve that.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion has been seconded. Vote to pass motion.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes.
So on this one, after a board seat is vacant, and right now we have 2 board seats vacant. One is the Deer Creek and the other one is the Lindsay South. And so we would declare those 2 seats vacant. Those are historically 2 very difficult seats to fill, and we don't always have. Kevin Pena actually was one that just filled the Deer Creek this last year, but that one's open. And I don't know who the last one with the Lindsay South has been, but it's been longer than I've been on the board or been to this district, so I don't know if we've ever had that one filled for the last 6 or 7 years. But we would declare it vacant, and then the law would go into effect as to, I think there's 60 days that we would try to have to elect someone into those positions if we could find someone. And if not, then the county superintendent could elect someone, but you'd have to first find someone who is wanting to do those positions, and that has not been historically something that has happened. So we just have, the first step is just to declare them vacant. So,
Then we'll form the committee next meeting, the search committee.
and then we can form the committee this meeting, or we can wait until next meeting when everyone kind of has their feet under them as to what that looks like and maybe what some of these things entail. Normally, we don't have this many new board members, and so that usually some of the old, the board members have been here. That's something that they've kind of taken on or voted on, but it doesn't have to be this meeting. We can do it in the June meeting and still be fine with our search. So typically, we're searching every year, the whole year, so it's not something that's really pressing. If it was something that was in another area, like maybe an in-town area, we would want to definitely go forward on that. But it's up to you guys if you guys want to do that. But the first step, like I said, is declaring it vacant, and then you guys can decide after that whether or not you form a committee or not.
So you need a motion to declare it vacant? Okay, I'll move.
Second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Ayes?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion passes. And I see the Volkert and Wegesser request is closed.
Yeah, if we have any, and we don't this time, so we always put it on there just in case, but we don't have any of that. And you guys will learn a little bit more of what that means here in the upcoming months. We won't take that time now, but when they do, it's typically closed. Sometimes it's not, but yeah, if you guys aren't going to select a committee this time, we can do that in June, and then you would just adjourn the meeting. That's up to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I guess any questions or comments?
What position is Jay filling?
He's in the Lindsay North. And is that the at-large one?
No, at-large is the south.
Okay.
But it's from south and 3. Anyone filling south should live in 3.
Okay, so she said anyone filling south should also live in 3. And so he's Lindsay North. And so we'd be looking at Lindsay South and in 3 is what Ann said.
3 is Deer Creek.
And Deer Creek, yeah.
I've seen the map where Ann would have the map available for.
Yep.
Okay.
We can
Okay.
look at that.
Yep. Yeah, if you have anybody in mind. But, I guess if there's nothing else, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all for your patience.
Yes, thanks for your patience, and if you make sure we get you to sign in that computer if you have not before you leave. So, and Cole, we'll just need your signature once you're back in town tomorrow. Is that right? Yeah. So if you could show up, step by, that would be great. All right, so Wednesday will be good then. Just stop by Ann's office, and then